So my name is Ralph Streich. I am a talent agent, and from Vancouver, my company is called Red Talent Management. There's 6 of us that work in the company, 4 of them that rep actors for film and TV work, 1 that just strictly reps performers for commercials, and then I represent people 100% just for voiceover. And some of the people that you probably know is Andrea Littman, Tabitha, Marika, Kelly Metzger, Brenda, Peter New, Ian Corlett, Sam Vincent, Vincent Tong, Michael Dangerfield. No, I don't rep Ashley. Kazumi, thank you. Yes. No, not John. But as you can see from our website that I sort of put up on the screen there. Oh no, so hold on, I'm gonna go back here.
You rep Tara?
Nope. So this is a link to our website, so if you just went to the Red Talent Management page, it would take you to this page. And it just gives you an idea of all the potential other areas that you can make money as a voiceover performer. You know, so rather than just hoping that you get an animated series, you can see that you can get work in commercials, audiobooks. What imaging is when you turn on a radio station, you know, you're listening to 504.5 FM, you know, music for Dallas. So that's what imaging is. Jingles, you know, we're American Airlines doing the best for you. Narration. Promo would be, you know, tonight on Seinfeld, Will, Jerry, and Elaine get married. Seinfeld, 7 o'clock on ABC. Trailer, we all know that voice of God, trailer voice that we hear before a movie. And then I also put singing on there, you know, because a lot of the times, especially in animated series, one of the requirements when a performer auditions is that they can sing, which was in the case of My Little Pony, which was the case of Nerds and Monsters. So what I'm going to do in this next hour, I'm going to talk a bit, and then we'll just sort of, I'll answer any questions that you have. First thing is I'm going to explain to you what an agent actually does. And so I am, I guess, the gatekeeper for all of my talent. In, let's say in the case of My Little Pony, you know, 6 years ago, the DHX or Hasbro would send me part of the script with a breakdown of the various characters that they need to cast. And based on that, I would look at the characteristics and then I would suggest talent on my roster that I think are appropriate for those roles. Sometimes it's a matter of me sending them their demos as an MP3 file, or we have a recording studio in the office. And a lot of times what they'll do is they'll just send me the script and then I'll bring in talent A, B, and C. We'll record them in the office and then we'll upload it onto our server and send them the auditions. Once the performer, you know, so then I get the call, we want to see Andrea, Tabitha, Sam for these roles. Then I give them the sides. A lot of times they might bounce ideas off of me. Then they go into the room, they do the audition. Sometimes there's a callback, and what a callback is let's say they've narrowed it down to 2 or 3 people for a role, then they'll bring those 2 or 3 people in and sort of work with them, and then usually what happens when we get close to the actual casting, we'll bring in My Little Pony, the main 6, and there might be 18 women, and they'll sort of do round robin, they'll play off of each other to find out what chemistry works best, and then finally the end result will be, in the case of My Little Pony, they cast the 6. At that point, then it's my job to negotiate what they get paid, and everything that we do is through an actor's collective agreement. So the rates are set, and there's guidelines, but there's things like credit. You know, where the credit is placed on a show. You know, the best credit that's available when you see a movie. You know, Brad Pitt in, and then we see the name of the movie. That's the best credit that you can get. And a lot of times for performers, where their credit is really important. So once we've negotiated what they're getting paid, how many episodes they're doing, at that point, then it's a matter of scheduling them. My Little Pony, we record every week from 2 to 6. So they send me the script. we determine on who's in the episode. I forward the script to the performers. They do the episode. I decide on any marketing, what their headshot's going to look like. I decide whether they're going to accept a role. I'm going to decide whether or not I want them to audition for a role. When it comes to commercial work, the same thing. The ad agency, a lot of time, if it's a TV commercial, will send me the actual visual of the commercial that they've shot, with hopefully a music track, because that will give me a real good idea of the voice that will go with it. They'll give me a rough idea, male 30s, guy next door. And again, what I'll do is I'll either send them submissions off of our website on who I think is appropriate, or they'll send me the copy. I'll record it in the office and then send it to them. Conventions, I would negotiate conventions. In the case of Tabitha, she was supposed to fly with us this morning, and she ended up getting a new cartoon series, and the network was adamant that the first 2 episodes were recorded before the 31st of October, which meant she had to go in today. So then I had to, call Bob up, then I had to find a different flight for her. Luckily, there was a direct flight from Vancouver leaving at 1 o'clock. And a normal animation record session is 4 hours, so they wanted her from 9 until 1. I got the producer to agree to get all her lines done so she could leave by 11 to make it to the airport for 11:30 so that she could catch a 1 o'clock flight. So a lot of my job is damage control, and a lot of times it's also being a bit of a therapist, because I couldn't imagine what it's like being a voiceover actor. You go for the audition, and then you go for the callback, and then you might get shortlisted, and then you don't get the job. And a lot of times there's a show in town right now with a very large production company out of Los Angeles, and after 78 episodes, I've got 4 people on the show. And after the 12th episode, they had recorded 12 episodes, and they did the animation for the first 2, and they put one of the voices to the animation, and they went, it just doesn't work. And they released them. So here you're doing the math on 78 episodes. You've recorded 12, so you think the job is mine, and they just pulled the rug and having another casting session. So in a case like that, luckily that wasn't one of my performers. You have to deal with someone who's really upset. So that is a big part of my job, as well as just sort of damage control and make sure that people realize that it has nothing to do with their performance. It just happened that they just liked the voice with the animated character. Now, for anyone that wants to get involved in, and I call it voice acting more than voiceover because it is a form of acting. It literally is impossible to be successful in this career without some form of training. And that doesn't mean that you have to go and get a BFA in acting at university. But there's a lot of things that you can do. You can look in the back of a community newspaper and see if there's like an acting workshop, or improv is great, because a lot of times in a room, and it could even be in a lot of times, there'll be 3 or 4 characters that they will not have cast in an animated show, because they know that the people in the room are strong enough. So all of a sudden they'll say, okay, there's the role of the talking chicken. Okay, Joe, give me your version. And they'll go in the room, and whoever does the best job will get the role and record it that day. So improv is perfect, because in improv you're throwing things constantly. Going to Craigslist. I know a lot of times you go into Craigslist. I know in Vancouver I think there's a film and television tab, and sometimes looking for a voiceover performer. And that's sort of a great way of establishing maybe a bit of a demo tape, because that is in essence what you're going to need when it comes to submitting to an agent, because that's what showcases your work, whether it's animation, narration, or commercial. Now I put up this page here because that was sort of giving you an idea. So this website is called Voice Bank. If you just Google it, it's really fun, I find, because it lists all, so if you go to the very top here, you'll see demos and clients. So it lists all the agencies. I think this one is in North America. So the great thing for you living in Dallas, you can scroll down and see, there's Austin, for any of you from Austin. I think I saw 4 of them on here. They're right here. So if you wanted to see her roster, you could click it on here and you could take a listen. All her contact information is here. And I think I went on there and I think there's 4, there's 4 talent agents in Dallas. I think there was 1 in Houston and 1 in Austin. So you could just sort of make a really nice form email and just saying that you're really interested in a voicemail. If an opportunity comes for them ever to forward you any voiceover classes that they're aware of, a lot of the times their talent will put on workshops. You can just say, could you please forward me that information? That's another way that you could possibly find about classes that are happening in your neighborhood. Let's say for animation, I think the most important thing to do is watch cartoons. You know, so many times someone will come into my office and say, I really want to get into animation. I say, what's your favorite cartoon? And there's like this blank look, and I don't know. Well, they hear that it's very lucrative, and I mean, God, if you can't even tell me, with passion, the shows that you like watching, you are not going to succeed in this career. And the one thing that training does, it gives you the opportunity to find a voice and develop not only your acting, but also your various characters. A typical demo tape should be maybe 1 to 1.5 minutes long. I know when I get them, and I say tape because I've been doing this for 22 years. So back in the day, I got a cassette tape, which was a pain. And then from there, it was a CD, and now pretty well everything is done digitally. But when I have something dropped off, I might give it 20 seconds, and if I don't hear it, I'll just turn it off. So what can you do to make not only me listen to it, but that's what I'm going to be sending to like a DHX or a Hasbro to get you in the room. And you have an obligation to entertain me. If I'm taking 2 or 3 or 4 minutes out of my day to look at your material, it has to be really strong. So you have to start off your demo with your strongest material. And definitely I don't want to hear your version of Bart Simpson or Bugs Bunny, or you wouldn't believe the number of emails that I get from Pony fans that say, you know what, can you listen to this? I think I have Pinkie Pie nailed. I can guarantee you there's never going to be another show that's going to want a character that sounds like Andrea. So what you can do, though, is find traits in that character and apply it to something else. So with Pinkie Pie, the excitedness, you might come up with a different character, Bart Simpson. So look at the traits in those characters, but come up with your own voice. And the thing you should do as well is think of, when you do submit that, the quality has to be really good. It can't just be done on an iPhone. For example, my company is probably one of the top ones in North America, so it'd be like you're applying to be a chef at the Four Seasons. You're not gonna, bring me your best chili con carne. So really make sure that what you're sending to the agent is of not only high quality, but make it fun. So what can you do in the actual packaging? Because I get a lot of demos sent to me, or I get a lot of emails sent to me, hey, take a listen to my demo. I get about 150 emails a day, and work related. So what can you do to make me open that and click it? And that's sort of where it comes to when you think of branding. We think of the Nike swoosh, and we think of, I don't know if you have Lululemon here, but what kind of brand can you establish? And I'm just going to show you an example of one of my clients. So Matt dropped this off maybe about 4 years ago. His name is Matt Ellis. And he just did this at home. And so it says me. He lucks out because Matt Ellis makes me. And on here it says, hear me, call me. And then you open this up, and he describes his voice: young, vibrant, hip, authentic, fresh, engaging, distinct, varied, persuasive, reliable. So some really interesting adjectives that described his name. And then a CD that doesn't have a magic marker on it. You wouldn't believe how many I get that just says, Joe Smith, and then a phone number, and I guess you want me to listen to it? But when you see something like this, it's slick packaging. It's a cool looking CD that has, again, ME. If you went to his website, it has that again. When he books a gig, or he goes in for an audition, and this is all stuff that I've suggested that he took this and made a postcard. So then what he does, he sends this to the studio, thanks for bringing me in, or it was great working with you. Or if he gets a gig, he then sends this out to everyone. Hey, I just booked the latest Mercedes spot. Take a listen, I hope that you like. There might be a link on this to where you can listen to it on his webpage. But again, we're constantly seeing this image. So the person who could potentially hire him, he gets his mail, he looks, oh, here's this. Then he dropped this off. Oh, this, then, now that, this was a few years ago. Now he's got a stick. Flash drive, thank you. And the same thing. Flash drives are really fun because there's a ton of stuff that you can put on it. You can put on your headshots, you could put your film and TV stuff on it, but again, it has this ME on it. At Christmas, what he does, he has coasters, and he goes out and it's got that on it. So it's that constant image. Who's that? Oh, that's Matt Ellis. Oh yeah, we should really bring him in. So that's just a kind of a really neat idea of what you can do. Now here are just some examples of what someone would get if you're auditioning for a lead in a cartoon series. This is it. It's one page. At the top, we've got a brief description of the character, and then we have maybe 10 lines. And all the women that would have auditioned for My Little Pony would have been the exact same thing. I mean, sometimes they give us the image, which kind of gives you an idea of what the voice might sound like. For example, this guy's name is El Rey. He's an action figure, he's bluff, he thinks he's a great wrestler, he thinks he's suave, he's a Libra, has kung fu grip, enjoys hot tumming and loves to cook. His voice should be strong, big action figure, manly voice. Wow, so this is what I'm gonna get, and then I'm gonna look over my roster and I'm gonna go, okay, well, who is gonna be able to do something with this? And a big problem that a lot of actors have that are first starting out is they don't look at the direction between their lines. They just look and see what's bold and they read it. So a line could be, El Rey finishes 10 rounds of wrestling and jumps onto the stage holding his trophy. We'd want to hear that he just did 10 rounds of wrestling. So we'd want to hear that he's really tired, or if someone just finished dancing, or if Pinkie Pie is running all over the place at some point when we hear her, we want to hear that she's out of breath. And it's those little things that a performer does when casting is listening to it will cause them to stop and hit rewind and say, hey, let's hear that again. In one of the Barbie movies, and I think we're on our 15th one now, I represent Barbie and Ken as well. There was a role of a 15-year-old pink dolphin. That was it. Female pink dolphin, 15 years old. All right, so I'm thinking of my obvious choices of women, Tabitha, Marika, Kazumi. And they're only probably going to bring in maybe 10 to 15 women for that role. And the actress who actually got cast in it, what she did is she went onto YouTube, which is a great thing as well. If I go back to when I was talking about training, is you could just Google animation session voiceover, and you're actually going to see sessions that happen. And a lot of times if you get a DVD, in the special features, you can see what happens in a room. But what she did is she watched a bunch of videos on dolphins, and what she did at the end of every line, she added that little clicking sound that a dolphin makes, and she ended up getting the role. And there's another great example. Years ago, there was a show called Mary, Kate, and Ashley, and it was the Olsen twins were the two female leads in it. So a casting call, and there was a role of for their dog who was a Scottie. So they asked, obvious choice, what actors on your roster can do a believable sort of fat bastard from Austin Powers to Sean Connery accent? Okay, so I, called up some of my clients, and a few of them said, yeah, I think I can do it okay. So one of my clients, Brendan, who happens to be Jewish, went in and he did sort of a half-ass version of a Scottish accent, but he has his confidence with him. He said, would you like to hear something different that I prepared, that I think might be quite fun? And it's the way he said it. It's not like, do you want, or can I do something? And you've got the big deer eyes. And they said, sure. So he did this Jewish Woody Allen version for this Scotty, and that's who ended up getting it. So what happened is that, they sent whether it was a CD or a link to a website, and you heard, version 1 of Scotty, and then a second one, and a third, and then all of a sudden you heard this kind of oy vey, precious Woody Allen Jewish character, and that's what they went with. So a lot of times when you go in, it's great to have 2 choices. One, based on what casting has requested, but if you go over it and you think, I think this would be really fun this way, the only thing they could say in the room when you go in is, no, but thank you. But I can almost guarantee you 90% of the times they're gonna say, sure, let's hear what you got. And sometimes it's when they say that and the performer that has come up with something a lot different that ends up getting the role. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play you an animation demo. Actually, I'm gonna show you one, which is Tabitha, just because she's going to be here. And another thing as well, Dallas is great because you've got four agencies that are right in the city that you live in. It's going to be a little bit more difficult if you have traveled in from a really small town. So if you want to pursue this, there are 2 other things you can do. There's a website called Voices123 and then voices.com. And those allow you to post your demos for free, and possible buyers can listen and invite you to audition. Now, if you want to go that route, the most important thing is that you do have a home studio with broadcast quality setup. And a lot of people start off that way because you can live in these remote communities, you can get some work, and if it ends up that you end up doing really well, then you might decide that you have to move to a market where you can work in. Vancouver is the 2nd largest production center in the world right now after Los Angeles. It goes Los Angeles, Vancouver, New York, Toronto. So for everyone that's living in Vancouver, it's great because we've got a huge film and TV base. But I think right now I have maybe 30 series regulars. I've got people in Ninjago, Yoda Chronicles, Nerds and Monsters, of course My Little Pony. The list goes on and on. So this is a person, let's say, if you lived in Vancouver and you were a female, you would be auditioning with Tabitha. So it would be really important that your material would have to be, I'm not going to say it's going to be as good because there's no one that is good as Tabitha. But anyways,
as it was my intention that you find me. You are from the Manisarera cartel, is that not correct? I am a servant of the Lovelace family, and I have come a long way to be here. I have a few questions I'd like to ask. Please excuse me, and I hope you enjoy yourselves. Roberta! I'll get it. How do I look?
Frightful.
You're too kind.
Yeah, my masterpiece is complete.
He's gonna go out there and beat up all the bad guys for us. Yep, that's right. We have to make sure he gets rid of them all.
Ow!
Have those plans destroyed immediately.